So I have found an New York Times article on the benefits of intermittent fasting. And this is what we're going to talk about, and this is what we're going to go through today. Which is an amazing thing. Even though I do want to point out, I'm not saying you should be doing this. I'm only reading an article and I'm only going through something that I'm interested in. And I do want to say it because I haven't had a look at this article, but we are maybe also going to go through something else since it is kind of long. Well, it might be enough for today. And I do also want to point out that, meat increases heart risks, latest study concludes. Eat natto, live longer. Make 2020 the year of less sugar. Yes, I'm doing that, and it feels amazing. I do believe if I would be starting to eat just quote unquote regularly, in terms of I'm gonna eat the burger and I'm gonna eat this and I'm gonna eat that, I do think that, or especially some sweets or some soda or some shit like that, I think that I would just die. Not really, but kinda, because it would really fuck with my body, I guess, in terms of my stomach, in terms of my digestive system and all these things. I do believe that I would be fucked, kinda. Anyway, something that I also want to point out, and maybe I've actually started to talk about that, but I then went on to just something else, maybe. The New York Times. The New York Times is a prestigious newspaper, which does not mean that everything is right what they're saying. I do still believe that they're having good journalists. This is because they're having a lot of resources. They are prestigious, which leads people to going there and good people to going there. But I do not want to necessarily say that this is what is right and this is what is good. There might be an article from, I don't know, maybe not the Sun, maybe from the Sun, actually. That is even better than this one, or maybe better researched than this one. I doubt that, but it could be the case because it is only about status. It is only about brands. The New York Times is, of course, a brand. And I do not necessarily want to rely on a brand or what a brand is just trying to promise me in terms of information. So I do want to point that out, but we're going to see when we've gone through this article and we've gone through the information, if there is something that's right or if there is some things that might not be right. Before I want to go through it, there's a few links down in the description. You should be checking them out. I do actually not want to say more because I'm always saying the exact same shit, but please just check out the links and also the information in the description. It is necessary, it is important, and you can benefit from it, especially from the notes, which is a free summary of what we are going to go through today. But yeah, anyway, so this is the article. I really love the illustration, by the way. I really, truly like that. It is an amazing one. I really love it. And it is from Gracia Lam, I think. Yes, should be. It is really cool. I'm sorry. So the benefits of intermittent fasting. I was skeptical, but it turns out that there is something to be said for a daily fast, preferably one lasting at least 16 hours. And I'm gonna highlight some things. I don't know if this is actually that legal since not every article from the New York Times is free to access as far as I know. But yeah, anyway, this article is written by Jane E. Brody and was published on February the 17th, which is 2 days ago, 2020. I've long thought the human body was not meant to run on empty, that fasting was done primarily for religious reasons or political protests. Otherwise, we needed a reliable, renewed source of fuel to function optimally, mentally and emotionally, as well as physically. Well, we're always going to find new things. We're always going to find new things. We're always going to see new things, which is an amazing thing, and which is just an amazing thing that science is doing a really great job at that. Personal experiences reinforced that concept. I'm not pleasant to be around when I'm hungry. There's even an official name for that state of mind, confirmed by research, which is hangry. And I do have to say, I think from a psychological and natural, if this makes sense, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. But if you think about nature and you being in nature, then just makes sense that you're getting hangry. You want to eat something, you are in need of food, and therefore you're angry. Because this angriness gives you more power, gives you more adrenaline, gives you more whatever, so that you're probably more able to kill something and then eat it, which means just getting food for you, than not being hungry, I guess. The interesting thing there would be if men are more hungry than women are. I don't know. But prompted by recent enthusiasm for fasting among people concerned about their health, weight, or longevity, I looked into the evidence for possible benefits and risks of what researchers call intermittent fasting. Popular regimes range from ingesting few, if any, calories all day, all day, every other day, or several times a week, to fasting for 16 hours or more every day. Like, there's different ways of fasting. There really are. And Manano in his early 50s said he had lost 12 pounds in about 2 months on what he calls the 7 to 11 diet. He eats nothing from 7 p.m. until 11 a.m. the next morning every day, which is not that of a bad thing. And I do want to point out once again, because I've been talking about intermittent fasting quite a lot in the past few months, I'd say. It is only changing when you're eating. It is not about changing what you're eating, it is changing when you're eating. And it is probably a relatively good way to lose weight. I'm also doing that. Some kinda. Yeah. I was skeptical. But it turns out that there's something to be said for practicing a rather prolonged diurnal fast, preferably one lasting at least 16 hours. Mark B. Madsen, neuroscientist at the National Institute on Aging and Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, explained that the liver stores glucose, which the body uses preferentially for energy before it turns to burning body fat. It takes 10 to 12 hours to use up the calories in the liver before a metabolic shift occurs to using stored fat, Dr. Madsen told me. After meals, glucose is used for energy and fat is stored in fat tissue, but during fasts, once glucose is depleted, fat is broken down and used for energy, because the body needs to do something. The body needs to use some energy, and the fat is there. You can use it, so yeah, it's gonna use the fat. And most people trying to lose weight should strive for 60 calorie-free hours. 16, I'm sorry, not 60, but 16. 60 would kind of be extreme. 16 calorie-free hours, he said, adding that the easiest way to do this is to stop eating by 8 p.m. Skip breakfast the next morning and then eat again at noon the next day. Caffeine-dependent people can have sugar-free black coffee or tea before lunch, but don't expect to see results immediately. It can take up to 4 weeks to notice an effect, he said. And in the first few days, it's probably not going to be the most pleasant thing. But once you're just into that, once you're used to that, everything is fine. I've also had days of 20 hours not eating something, and it is also fine. Once you're in the state, of, okay, I haven't been eating something for a dedicated amount of hour, it is fine. You are fine. You're not going to starve, and you're also not going to be hungry and shit, which is only just certain period of time. At least it is the case for me. At least that's how I have experienced it. But I'm normally fasting from, well, it depends. Today it's probably going to be like 9 p.m. till tomorrow. What should I then do? Like 3 hours, then 3 p.m. Well, yeah, I'm actually kind of doing that. I'm actually kind of having my 16 hours. Quite. It also depends. Sometimes I'm doing more, sometimes I'm doing less. It really truly depends on the day, what I'm doing on the day. Like various different reasons or factors. Dr. Madsen and his colleague Rafael De Capo at the Aging Institute recently reviewed the effects of intermittent fasting on health, aging, and disease in the New England Journal of Medicine. The article was prompted by frequent questions patients are asking their doctors about the health effects of fasting. Given their limited knowledge of nutrition, doctors are often unable to advise their patients, Dr. Madsen said, which is totally the case because it is something new and they also have to adapt to that. It is something that is emerging, which is something that you can say like, okay, it is good and it is great that it is the case. But on the other hand, it is also like, should you really rely on whatever you have just seen on the internet? Maybe not. Maybe yes. It depends. It truly depends. But I think you're not gonna die, kind of, unless you just really, no, you're not gonna die. We are able to just live without food for, I think it is a week, even more. But I mean, then you're gonna be in a very fucked up stage. You're gonna lose a lot of weight. Your body's gonna consume itself. You're gonna be fucked, basically. It's not a nice thing. Those fed only intermittently suffered less brain damage because they were better able to resist the stress of oxygen and energy deprivation, which I guess makes sense, because if you're fasting, it is some sort of stress for your body, because you're hungry and you're having to deal with being hungry, and surely, I don't know what it is doing, and I just before didn't know what it's doing, but I thought like it just has to do something to your mind as well, to some degree, because it involves some willpower. It is something that not a lot of people are doing. It is something that's abnormal. It is something that's not on your schedule. It's not your schedule. Most often, it depends on what your parents were doing. If it is something that a lot of people are doing and whatnot, like it truly depends on your circumstances. But I mean, not a lot of people are doing that. Even more people are doing it now, but still not a lot of people are doing that. For example, I don't actually know anyone but myself personally. Of course, online there's a lot of people that are doing that. But I've started to actually do that because of not only health reasons, but I also thought about health reasons. But I also thought about, if I'm a little bit more leaner, I'm actually a relatively skinny guy, but I'm also, I don't want to say relatively muscular or some shit, because I'm not that muscular. But I mean, being a little bit leaner would be something amazing without losing too much of the muscle mass that I'm having. So I thought, let's start that, and I didn't have any problems, and so I thought, I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna keep that going. And this is what it is then. This is how I'm living my life, and this is how I'm doing things. And up to this day, I'm not eating breakfast, which is also really time-saving activity. Of course, I do, since I actually want to gain weight, not in terms of fat, but I want to gain weight, which is sometimes inevitable, since if you're gaining weight, most often it's going to be some fat. It's not going to be only lean muscle mass. Some shit, it's not gonna work out, at least as far as I know. But yeah, so far I haven't seen any problems. But when I'm really hungry, and when I'm into just when I'm really hungry, when I'm just getting out of the fasting state, then I'm gonna eat fucking everything. It's not gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna eat one apple. It's gonna be 10 fucking apples, because I'm so hungry, not really consciously, but my body is really like, okay, now there's food, and now I can eat something, so I'm gonna store a lot of fucking shit, so that I'm gonna be able to starve again from this point on to just 16 hours from that. Basically, at least this is how I'm seeing that, actually. But let's see. Other animal studies have shown a robust disease-modifying benefit of intermittent fasting on a wide range of chronic disorders, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancers, and neurodegenerative brain diseases. The researchers reported the review of both animal and human studies found improvements in a variety of health indicators and a slowing or reversing of aging and disease processes, which is amazing. For example, human studies of intermittent fasting found that it improved such disease indicators as insulin resistance, blood or fat abnormalities, high blood pressure, or inflammation, even independently of weight loss. In patients with multiple sclerosis, intermittent fasting reduced symptoms in just 2 months, a research team in Baltimore reported in 2018. So if you think evolutionary, Dr. Madsen said predators in a wild fight for prey in a fasting state and are better at recovering. So if you think evolutionarily, Dr. Madsen said, predators in the wild fight, not wildlife, but the wild fight for prey in the fasting state and are better at recovering from inevitable injuries. The human counterpart, people who evolved in feast or famine environments, would not have survived unless somehow protected by fasting, which is insane. So our human ancestors did not consume 3 regularly spaced large meals plus snacks every day, nor did they live a sedentary life, the researchers wrote, which is totally the case. And there wasn't always food around, so there was no way that you're going to have a meal here and then. There was only meals and or food when there has been food. And when there's not been any food, then there's not been any meals. Quite, quite easily said, you know. The studies they analyzed showed that most, if not all, organ systems respond to intermittent fasting in ways that enable the organism to tolerate or overcome the challenge and then return to normal. Okay, Dr. Madsen explained that during a fast, the body produces few new proteins, prompting cells to take protein from non-essential sources, break them down, and use the amino acids to make new proteins that are essential for surviving or survival. Then, after eating, a lot of new proteins are produced in the brain and elsewhere. A reasonable question might be, how safe is intermittent fasting? When fats are used for energy, they produce substances called ketone bodies that regulate the expression and activity of many proteins and molecules that are known to influence health and aging. The researchers reported ketosis and a build-up of acidic ketones in the blood is a state that the Atkins diet, the ketogenic diet, and other carbohydrate-restricted diets aim to achieve. Taken to extremes, however, ketosis can damage the liver, kidneys, and brain, and is especially dangerous to people with various chronic disorders like diabetes and heart disease. So you should know whatever the fuck you're doing if you're doing a ketonic diet, and also if you're fasting. You should not starve yourself. Another important question, how practical is intermittent fasting? Not very, especially in its early weeks or for people with limited control over their meal times. Many people will experience hunger, irritability. What? Apart from occasional irritability, which means testiness, touchiness, scratchiness, irascibility, touchiness, and the reduced ability to concentrate during periods of food restriction, the researchers wrote. They added, however, that these side effects usually disappear within a month. Socially, eating restrictions like intermittent fasting can be very limiting. Yes, how do you respond to a 7 p.m. dinner invitation if that's the state or the start of your fasting window? Well, you're gonna extend your fucking fasting window. For people with a known or hidden tendency to develop an eating disorder, fasting can be the perfect trigger, which I discovered in my early 20s. In trying to control my weight, I consumed little or nothing all day, but once I ate in the evening, I couldn't stop and ended up with binge eating disorder, which is then pretty fucked up. How well this diet might work for you may depend largely on your usual pre-diet snacking and drinking habits and the kids and amounts of foods you consume the kinds and amounts of food you're consuming during the non-fasting hours. Yes. Knowing you cannot eat at all for a pre-described period may prompt some people to cram in whatever they want during the eating window, regardless of its nutritional value, which is not that of a good thing, but it's also not too bad, but it's not good. Dr. Madsen cautioned that intermittent dieters should eat healthy foods, include whole grains, healthy fats, and protein, limit saturated fats, and avoid sugar and refined carbohydrates. And on fasting days, be sure to stay well hydrated. He also suggested a gradual decrease over a period of 4 months in the hours and days of restricted eating and in the amount of calories consumed on fasting days, so that you're having a gradual shift there. So there is another article, Jane Broad is the personal health columnist, a position she has held since 1976. She has written more than a dozen books, including the bestsellers Jane Broad's Nutrition Book and Jane Broad's Good for Book, which is amazing. This looks relatively disgusting, I gotta have to say. Eat natto, live longer. What means natto? Oh, by the way, I do wanna still highlight the rest here. Can you please show my highlights? Thank you. So that you're gonna have it in your summary. So here it is. But let's see what natto is. I do wanna see what natto means. Men and women who ate fermented soy products like natto, miso, and DPEH had lower rates of cardiovascular disease and early death. Which could be, is it a correlation or is it a causation? I think then it is a causation, but I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna highlight this again, or as well. Eating fermented soy products may reduce the risk of premature death, researchers report. Some soy products like tofu are not fermented, but others, miso, natto, and tempeh, for example, are made using bacteria or mold in the fermentation process. Soy sauce, if made in the traditional way, is also fermented. The study in BMJ followed the diet and health of 92,915 Japanese men and women aged 45 to 74 for an average of 15 years. During this time, 33,303 of the study participants died, which is like it's not a third. Well, it is a third. It is exactly fucking third. Or is it? No, it's not. 13 times 3. It's not. 13 times 5. It's not. 6. It's it's actually a seventh. Which also means, I guess, 1 out of 7 people died. Or 7 out of 100. This could actually somehow make sense. But yeah, make 2020 the year of less sugar. I should also read that, because I'm also not eating any fucking sugar. Dried fruit, oats, and coffee. Answers to your sugar questions. Oats? I know. Please don't eat oats because they're out of carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are gonna, burst your fucking nuts. No, this is apparently what not nuts, but beans are doing. I'm not sure about that. I've only heard it from Tim Ferriss in some weird context, kind of. So I don't know what's to that. I don't know what this is all about. But yeah, I think that this is going to be the end of the episode. I hope that you've liked it. I have liked it. I'm now going to work out probably because it's already 5 p.m., which is quite late. And I've also only been recording today, which is a fucked up, shitty thing. Fuck. Well, 5 p.m. is not that late, at least. But well. I wish you the best health, of happiness, and also success, and also hope that you're going to remind yourself when you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy and basically means just being a nice person and then being remembered as a nice person. And yeah, with that being said, 3 questions that I'm having for you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? These 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea. But yeah. I'm hopefully going to see you the next time, so please consider subscribing to the podcast and also to the YouTube channel. And I'm going to see you the next time. I at least hope. So I'm going to see you. I'm actually going to see you for a little bit longer since everything is broken once again. And the episode's probably going to stop like in the middle of the episode. Or in the middle of me talking. Eat better, feel better. Food advice from Year in Well. Eat better and feel better. I'm interested. Intermittent fasting, drinking less alcohol, and eating more oysters are some of the steps you can try. Can what we eat affect how we feel? Yes. Or is it about nutritional psychiatrists describe antidepressants and other medications were appropriate and engage in talk therapy and other traditional forms of counseling. It's not counseling, but anyway, but they argue that fresh and